Cam from TK3D Prints. I'd like to introduce new users to the Photon workshop. This is the slicer that all the Photon printers are using. In this video I will explain the basics on how to prepare a print and show you the support system setup that I have, which I find is way better than the default settings and will be of much better use to you. Okay, first things we need to do after you've installed the software and booted it up is select the printer you're using, which is in the configure, select the machine. I'm using the Photon Mono, so that's the one I have selected. Now I don't know if this is the same with other build plates, but for the Photon Mono logo at the front, well, that's where you would think it'd be, is actually for the back. So if you want your prints actually printed facing you, click on the right mouse button and hold it down and spin the bed around. So anything that's facing you on your screen will actually be facing you when it prints. You can use the middle button to move it up and down and zoom in and out. And the left mouse button allows you to move the actual bed around. So these are my default settings that I use for the Photon Mono, and these work pretty well with the Anycubic resin that I've been using. You may adjust these to your heart's content, but I find this works pretty well. This will vary depending on the printer that you're using, but if you're using the Anycubic green that comes with your printer, you may want to dial an extra 10 to your base exposure and 2 to your normal exposure in your settings if you're using the regular photons with the Anycubic green. First thing we need to do is load in our print. It will be loaded into the middle of the build plate, and we'll just go through some of these basic icons here. This is your model move. You can use the sliders, or you can use the settings on here. Most of this is self-explanatory. This will drop it to the actual build plate, that'll center, and that'll reset it to how the model was when it was first loaded in. Next we have rotate. You can click and hold and rotate. Now use facet as ground. Basically you can click on that, select a point on the print, and it will try and line it up to the build plate as best it can. Now I use that just to make sure that the print is directly on the bed. Remember to click it off before you leave that. Scale again. You can lock the ratio and scale it, or you can drag on the actual arrows. If you're not happy with that, you can click on reset and it'll set it back to the way it was. This is for duplicating and sorting out the prints on your build plate. So if I duplicate this a few times, I can either set them up like this. Now, something to point out, if the print is black like this, it basically means it's off the build plate and that part won't print. But don't worry, we can use the move command to move these. This is just basically throwing a quick way of setting up the prints. So I only need 2 of these anyway, so I'll delete this one and the one at the back. So I've now got 2 prints that have been duplicated. In fact, I'll actually delete that one for the time being, and the reason for, say, I need to show you how to hollow prints. Now, to do this, you just click on the hollow icon up here. If your infill is on, turn it off. I'll show you why now. Infill will create solid walls on the inside which will create pockets of resin and air, and this will expand after you've cured your prints, and in a couple of weeks time you'll start to see splits in your prints. So make sure it's actually switched off. You can adjust the hollow thickness on the wall. This will vary depending on the print and how much you want the hollow. Now for small miniatures for 28mm or 32mm, you might just want to leave them solid. This character is a 60mm character, so I've decided to hollow this one to save resin and to reduce the contact of the print on the FEP sheet. So I'll now hollow it. Now that it's hollowed, I need to put a vent hole. Vent holes are very crucial with the hollow. This allows air to enter the area. It's a bit like your lung, and reduces the actual suction and the resin. So we'll click on that. You can adjust this size to how you need fit, and then select the area that you want to punch the hole through, click on it, then click OK, and there we have the hole through the print. Now ideally you want to keep that hole as close to the build plate as possible. The sooner the hole prints, the sooner air can enter the print and reduce the suction whilst it's printing. Obviously I don't want it in the feet because I'm actually printing this print directly upright, but there are a couple of ways of printing your prints. I prefer to print upright, but this takes a little bit more time than if you have the print angled, so I'll duplicate another one because it's already been hollowed, so I won't have to do that again. So there we have that print, and I'll actually rotate this one backwards to about there. It'll drop down to the bed. So what I need to do now is go up to the Z and bring this up by 7. The reason you need to bring the print off the bed is to allow the supports to form underneath the print. So I tend to leave it at 7mm because the bases on the supports will take a few millimeters up as well. So that'll shrink the actual height on the supports. Now there are pros and cons with printing upright directly off the build plate. If you're printing directly off the build plate, you will always get an elephant's foot around the first, in my case, the 6 bottom layers. Because of the exposure of 35, this will create a small ring around the feet. Now, when I'm printing minis off the base plate, and so I don't mind that little ring. But if you're printing a character and you didn't want that little bit, you tend to print it off the bed like this. So this way will avoid the elephant's foot. But the disadvantage is supports will actually be all the way at the back of the print. But again, this sometimes you need to do depending on the print, because some prints may be a little bit larger and you might have to tilt it backwards just to get it to fit on the build plate. Whereas printing upright, all the supports will be at the bottom, so when we actually get around to cleaning the supports, the points will basically be underneath the print, and it makes tidying the actual print a lot easier. We have to do less work. Okay, so now we'll go on to supports. The blue model is the one that we have selected. I shall basically run through my support settings, and if you pause the video during each one, and then you can adjust your settings to match, because these supports, in my view, they're not perfect, but they are a lot better, and it'll give you a place to work from. So with the light support selected, this is the top, the middle of the supports, and the bottom of the supports. Now you may want to change the base. Some users prefer to use the skates because it has an angled wall, so it makes removing prints off the bed and the supports a lot easier. I myself prefer the cylinders because I print mostly directly off the bed. Okay, we'll now go through the medium support settings. So again, we'll click on the top, pause the video and make a note and adjust. The middle and the bottom. Now select the heavy supports, the top, the middle and the bottom. If you wish to use a raft, that's up to you. I find rafts just a waste of resin. Like on FDM printing, rafts are for uneven beds. If your bed is leveled correctly, you do not need rafts. They create suction and can also increase the risk of your print failing. Okay, I shall select the light supports, the medium supports, because I'm doing quite a large print and I don't want it failing. So there's different ways of doing this. If you notice, whilst I'm scrolling up and down, it slices through the actual prints. This is very handy for using for putting your own supports, because what we're looking for when we add supports are little islands like this. If that's not supported, that will stick to your FEP sheet and will continue failing all the way up to the point where it makes contact with the rest of the print. So anything below that will either end up flat or stuck to your build plate. So we need to make sure that all these areas are supported. Now a lot of you will just use the auto supports because manual supports take a long time, but you have more control over them. So we'll just use the auto supports now, but once you've used the auto supports, it's always handy to double check your print by sliding through, making sure everything's been supported. So right, here we have fill, which we'll do directly from the build plate upwards. If this character is actually on a base, it would bring the supports down on top of that base as well. Platform we'll just do from the platform upwards. And we have vertical supports and tree supports. I shall explain these in a moment. So I shall do a quick fill on this character. Now remembering that the heels are going to be the first thing that actually start printing, so always make sure you have extra supports just around there, because if we just slide down here now, that will be freestanding, this area here, until it makes contact with that support. And again, like here with the sword, this is freestanding now until it makes contact with the actual print. So again, if you can, it's handy to actually add an extra support there. But because it's mainly upright, we shouldn't really have a problem with that. See, those areas are actually supported. That one might need another one. And then just generally scroll up. And checking. See, only one support so far is on there. Oh, sorry, there is two supports, but we're going to add a couple of extra ones because this will be freestanding until it actually connects to the print. So again, just check around the base. And that's the blade there, so I'll actually put an extra support here. And there. Just to give it a little bit of extra structure. Okay, may need one there. Let's just check through. I think that's actually connected to the print as it prints. No, see that little area there? We'll just try and connect to support there. No, it's not having it. About there. Yep. Okay. And that's that print actually supported. Apart from maybe that area is actually on the print. Yeah. And one just there. So that's that print actually now sorted. And as you can see, all the print is off the base, and that looks ready to print. So now we'll select the other character, just remove that support, and again we'll click fill. As you can see here now, these bases have actually gone into the actual print. So that would either break the tip of the toe off as we were trying to remove them, or we'd have to use a knife, and it's just a lot of hassle there doing that. Again, it's connected to there. So let's just remove them supports and select the tree supports, and then do another fill. As you can see now, it's economized on the actual bases, and each one of them is actually now free from touching the print. So again, just double check using the slider, making sure that you have no islands just floating. So there's one there, but I'll actually add a couple more to the sword hilt. And I think I'll put another one there. Not happy with that one, so what I shall now do is select the delete, select the actual support, and then click delete again, and then click it off and go back to add. Go on to this side, print, and add a support there as well. I'll actually put a couple more on this side. Just double check that's not gone through the foot. No, that's okay. Okay, so I'll now actually select a light support, zoom into the face, and add one just there underneath the chin. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now, after these have actually been printed, the best way to remove your supports without damaging your print is after you've actually washed the prints in whichever solution that you use. Do not take off the supports yet. Let the print dry a little bit and then use a hairdryer on warm or hot hand water that you can actually put your hand into and immerse or use a hairdryer on the actual supports. These will start to heat up and they will become flexible, and from then you can easily remove supports from the actual prints without damaging the prints too much. So that's a little tip for you for removing the supports. If you try and remove them before without heating them up, you might end up with puck marks from where the support tips were connected. If you cure the prints with the supports on, you will have a nightmare with puck marks. And so yeah, always remove your supports before curing and use a heat source like either hot hand water or a hairdryer to actually heat those supports up and then be able to take them off. Don't use a hot gun because it's too hot and areas like the sword will start to warp as well. Okay, now that we've got the prints actually supported, we shall click back on the settings again, select your layer thickness, your exposure time, input that so you know that your resin is going to work with it. Again, this will all differ depending on the machine that you're using, and set your bottom exposure. And to actually slice the model, we'll go over to this icon and then click on it. I prefer to save the files directly to my hard drive. That way if my USB stick fails, I've still got the actual Photon files on my actual hard drive. I'll copy these over to the USB stick afterwards. So I'll just overwrite that. I'll spin this forward during the slice. This will take approximately 3 hours and 23 minutes to print. Always click on the preview, open it up, use the middle mouse to zoom in, and then just check through the slice, checking that everything's as it should be. If you're happy with the slice and there's no weird errors like big blocks where they're not supposed to be, close the window, put the file onto your USB stick, and happy printing. Now I hope this has helped you in some way in getting started with the Photon workshop. So thanks for watching the video. Again, I hope this is of some use to you. Please hit the like and the subscribe if you're new to the channel, and hopefully have more videos out in the future for you all. Thanks for watching. Bye.